I kicked my best friend out of my apartment after she broke my no overnight guests rule with her boyfriend. I, 25F, live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment that I worked really hard to get. Like, it's not fancy, but it's mine. I pay for everything myself, and after years of roommates, sketchy landlords, and even moving back in with my parents for a while, finally having a space that's actually mine feels like a huge accomplishment. A few months ago, my best friend, Maya, 27F, hit a rough patch. She lost her job, broke up with her long-term boyfriend, and couldn't afford rent on her own anymore. Since we've been close for over a decade, we met in high school, did college together, all that, I offered to let her stay with me temporarily. It wasn't supposed to be forever, just until she got back on her feet. But before she moved in, I was very clear about one thing: no overnight guests. I don't care if it's friends, hookups, family, whoever. I need my home to be my safe place. I've had past experiences with roommates' boyfriends basically moving in rent-free, or people overstaying their welcome and making me feel like a stranger in my own home. So when Maya asked if she could crash with me, I told her she was absolutely welcome, but with the condition that she respect that rule. At the time, she agreed without hesitation. She even laughed and said, "Don't worry, I'm too traumatized from my last relationship to even think about dating for a while." And honestly, I believed her. Fast forward a few months. And yeah, things got complicated. So a little context about me and Maya, because I think that's important here. We've been friends since we were 15. We met in high school. Both of us were kind of the weird kids, not in a bad way, but we were into books, late night talks about music and life, and we didn't really fit into the super popular crowd. She was one of those people who could make me laugh until I cried, and we got each other in ways that made everything else feel less lonely. In college, we actually ended up at the same school. Not exactly planned, but we both wanted to stay close to home. We roomed together for 2 years, and it was chaotic but fun. We fought about dumb things like whose turn it was to clean the bathroom or whether the thermostat should be at 68 or 72. But we also pulled all-nighters together, covered for each other when one of us bombed an exam, and navigated messy relationships side by side. If you'd asked me then, I would have sworn she'd be in my life forever. Like, maid of honor at my wedding, auntie to my future kids, that kind of person. After college, our lives went in slightly different directions. I got a stable job in admin and worked my way up while she bounced around a little more. She tried a few different jobs, some creative stuff, some retail, and I think she never really found her footing. She also had this long-term boyfriend that, honestly, none of us liked. He wasn't abusive or anything, but he was lazy and dismissive, and I always felt like she gave more than she got. But she stuck with him for years, even when she seemed miserable. Despite all that, we stayed close. Weekly phone calls, random sleepovers, girls' trips when we could afford them. She was the person I'd call crying at 2 a.m. after a breakup, and I was the one who helped her move apartments like 3 different times. Our friendship wasn't perfect. She could be flaky, and sometimes I felt like I gave more than I got, but overall I felt like it was one of the most solid relationships in my life. Which is why, when she called me one night absolutely sobbing about her breakup and losing her job, I didn't even hesitate. I told her she could stay with me. I didn't stop to think about what it would mean long term. I just wanted to be there for her. That's what friends do, right? I thought if the roles were reversed, she'd do the same for me. At first, it even felt kind of nostalgic, like being in college again. We'd stay up late, talking, binge watch Netflix, eat way too much takeout. For a while, it was even fun. But I also knew, deep down, that things could get complicated, which is why I laid down that one big rule up front. No overnight guests. Not negotiable. She agreed. She promised. And back then, I had no reason not to trust her. When Maya first moved in, honestly, it wasn't terrible. Like I said, it reminded me a little of our college days. She helped me cook sometimes. We'd sit around in pajamas, watching trashy reality shows. And there was something comforting about having another person around. I'm not gonna lie, living alone can get lonely, even when you love your own space. But as weeks turned into months, I started noticing things that bugged me. Little things at first, like her leaving dishes in the sink for later, which somehow turned into 2 days later, or borrowing my shampoo when she ran out without asking. Small stuff, but it added up. I kept reminding myself, she's going through a rough time, don't be a nag, be supportive. Still, I also felt a shift in my own space. My apartment didn't feel as much like mine anymore. Suddenly, there was her stuff everywhere, her clothes draped over the couch, her makeup all over the bathroom counter, random shoes piled by the door. Again, I know these sound like small annoyances, but when you've worked so hard for your independence, those little intrusions hit differently. And then there was the boyfriend issue. About a month after moving in, Maya started seeing someone new. Let's call him Jake. At first, I was happy for her. She'd been heartbroken after her breakup, and it seemed nice that she was moving on. I met him once or twice when he came to pick her up, and he seemed fine. I mean, kind of quiet, a little smug maybe, but whatever. My rule was clear: no overnight guests. So as long as he wasn't crashing at my place, I didn't care. Except, of course, that's where the tension started creeping in. He'd come over just to hang out and stay until midnight while I was trying to unwind after work. He'd raid my fridge without asking. One time I came home to find the two of them in the kitchen cooking dinner with my groceries. Not even a, hey, hope you don't mind we use your pasta. I told myself not to overreact. I reminded myself this was temporary. But every time I saw him there, every time I felt like a guest in my own apartment, the resentment built up a little more. I tried to drop hints, like, hey, just a reminder about the no overnight guest thing, or you guys are welcome to hang out here, but I need some quiet time too. Maya would brush it off with, of course, don't worry, Jake won't stay over. She always said the right words, but her actions, yeah. And honestly, I started feeling invisible. My boundaries weren't being respected, and it was like she just assumed that because I loved her, I'd be fine with whatever. Which, to be fair, is sort of true. I do love her, and that's why I was biting my tongue more than I wanted to. But the thing is, when you set a rule that matters to you, and you see someone slowly creeping closer and closer to breaking it, it feels less like an accident and more like a test. I could feel the test coming. So, Jake. Like I said before, when Maya first introduced him, I thought, okay, he's nothing special, but at least she's not crying over her ex anymore. I wanted to be supportive, but the longer he was around, the more uncomfortable I felt. Not even in a dramatic, he's a monster way. Just the kind of guy who slides into your life and acts like he owns the place. He had this habit of making himself way too comfortable in my apartment. Shoes off, stretched out on the couch, remote in hand, like it was his living room. And maybe this is petty, but he'd use my fancy coffee beans without asking, the ones I treat myself to once a month because they're expensive, and he wouldn't even clean the machine properly afterward. Stuff like that drove me crazy because it wasn't just about the coffee, it was about the complete lack of respect. And Maya, she didn't seem to notice. She'd giggle, kiss him, act like everything was normal. If I gave her a look, she'd just roll her eyes like, lighten up, he's not hurting anyone. Except he kind of was. He was hurting me in the sense that he was taking over my space. And every time I thought about bringing it up, I remembered that she wasn't paying rent, she wasn't covering utilities. I was carrying the whole place on my back while she and Jake treated it like their playground. The rule was still being followed. Technically, he wasn't sleeping over, but he was there late, almost every night. Some nights I'd go to bed and he'd still be in the living room with her, and I'd wake up for water at 2 a.m. and hear his laugh through the walls. If you're leaving at 2 in the morning, is that really different from staying overnight? Because it felt like overnight to me. I tried talking to Maya about it once, gently. I said, hey, I know you're happy with Jake and I want that for you, but I feel like he's here a lot. Can we maybe limit it a little just so I can have some breathing room? She got defensive immediately. Oh my God, are you seriously jealous of my boyfriend? He's not doing anything wrong. You know I'd never let him live here. That stung. I wasn't jealous. I just wanted to not feel like a stranger in my own damn home. But once she said it like that, I backed down because how do you argue without sounding like the bad guy? After that, I started walking on eggshells. Every time I came home, I braced myself to see his shoes by the door. Every time I sat on the couch, I noticed his scent on the throw blanket. It's such a small thing, but when you're hyper aware of someone invading your space, it grows until you can't stop noticing. And maybe the worst part, my trust in Maya started cracking because every time she swore up and down, "Don't worry, he's not staying over," I could feel this little doubt creep in. Like, was she saying that because she meant it? Or because she wanted me to shut up? Spoiler alert, it was the second one. It finally happened on a Friday night, and honestly, I don't think I'll ever forget how it played out because it felt like such a gut punch. That week had already been exhausting. Work was insane, I was behind on deadlines, and all I wanted by Friday evening was to curl up with some takeout and watch a dumb movie alone. I even texted Maya earlier in the day to say, "Hey, I'm having a rough one. Can it just be a quiet night tonight?" She responded with, "Of course, no worries. I'll just hang out in my room." That gave me some relief. I get home around 7 and immediately I notice the extra pair of shoes by the door. Jake's. My stomach dropped, but I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe he just stopped by quickly. Maybe he wasn't staying long. I was tired and didn't have the energy to argue. The apartment smelled like pizza, and sure enough, they were in the living room, laughing, eating, watching some show on Netflix. My couch, my Netflix, my Friday night. I tried to be polite. I said hi, grabbed some water, and went straight to my room. I figured if I ignored it, maybe he'd leave. Hours passed. I tried to distract myself with YouTube, but I could hear them through the wall, laughing, talking, the TV blaring. By midnight, I was furious. By 1 a.m., I was pacing. At 2 a.m., I got up for water, and sure enough, the lights were off in the living room. I thought, finally, he left. But then I noticed something. The blanket on the couch was gone. I don't even know what possessed me to check, but I walked down the hall and quietly pushed open Maya's door just a crack, and there it was, Jake's jacket on her desk chair, his sneakers on the floor, and 2 figures in her bed. My heart was pounding. I felt this mix of betrayal and rage and honestly humiliation. Because it wasn't just about them breaking the rule, it was that she had lied to my face earlier, knowing damn well what she planned to do. I slammed the door, probably harder than I realized because they both stirred. Maya came out a few minutes later whispering, "What's wrong with you?" Like I was the one causing drama. I snapped. I said, "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? We had one rule. One. No overnight guests. And you broke it. You lied to me." She tried to play it off. "Oh my God, calm down. It's not a big deal. It's just one night. He had too much to drink to drive home." That made me even angrier because, first of all, I don't believe for a second that was the reason. And second, even if it was, that's not my responsibility. I'm not running a hotel. I told her point blank, "Pack your stuff. I want you out." She looked stunned, like she couldn't believe I was serious. "You're really gonna throw away our friendship over this, over one night?" And maybe that's the part that hurt the most. Because yes, I was throwing her out, but it wasn't just over one night. It was over weeks of disrespect, of feeling like my space didn't matter, of being treated like my boundaries were negotiable. She didn't pack that night. She slammed her door and cried, and I barely slept. But the next morning, she started gathering her things in angry silence. Jake didn't even look at me. He just hovered around her like a bodyguard. And when she finally walked out with her suitcase, she didn't say goodbye. She just muttered, "You're unbelievable." And the door shut, and I was left standing there in an apartment that felt both emptied and heavier than it had ever been. The silence after she left was deafening. I remember standing in the living room that Saturday morning, staring at the empty space where her suitcase had been, and feeling this weird mix of emotions. Relief, sadness, anger, guilt. Relief because I finally had my apartment back. Sadness because, well, this was my best friend of over a decade, and it felt like I had just cut her out of my life with one sentence. Anger because she had forced me into that position. And guilt because I kept asking myself, did I go too far? The first couple of days were strange. On one hand, I felt lighter. I could sit on my couch without wondering if Jake's cologne would still be lingering in the fabric. I could walk into the kitchen and know the groceries I bought were still there. I didn't have to tiptoe around someone else's moods or feel like a third wheel in my own home. But then the phone call started. Not from Maya, she went radio silent, but from our mutual friends. Apparently, Maya wasted no time telling her version of the story. According to her, I, quote, kicked her out on the street with nowhere to go because I couldn't handle her being happy with her boyfriend. She framed it like I was jealous, bitter, controlling. And the worst part, some of our friends believed her. I got texts like, hey, I know you're going through stuff, but wasn't that a little harsh? And you guys have been friends forever. Can't you just let her make one mistake? I wanted to scream. It wasn't one mistake. It was weeks of small boundary pushes, followed by her completely disregarding the one rule I set. But how do you explain that without sounding petty? She used my coffee and hogged my couch? People don't take that seriously. They just see, wow, she lost her best friend over an overnight guest. Meanwhile, my family was on my side. My mom told me I did the right thing. If she can't respect your boundaries in your own home, she doesn't deserve to live there. My dad was more blunt. He's a freeloader, and you were too nice for too long. Hearing that gave me some validation, but it didn't erase the pit in my stomach every time I thought about how easily Maya and I had gone from laughing on the couch to not speaking at all. I also started doubting myself in quiet moments. I'd be making dinner and think, maybe I could have just let it slide once. Maybe I could have given her one warning instead of kicking her out on the spot. Then I'd remember the look on her face when she lied to me and the anger would flare back up. It was like whiplash, bouncing between guilt and righteousness. Jake never reached out, obviously. But a part of me thinks he enjoyed the whole situation. He never liked me. I could feel it. I think he saw me as an obstacle between him and Maya, and now I was gone from the picture. The hardest part has been the silence from Maya. No texts, no calls, no angry paragraphs, nothing. For someone who used to text me goodnight memes every single day, the absence is loud. I keep checking my phone, half expecting her to break the ice, but it hasn't happened. And the longer it goes, the more final it feels. So now I'm stuck. I got what I wanted, my space, my peace, my rules respected, but at the cost of a friendship that shaped most of my adult life. And I can't stop wondering if I pulled the trigger too fast. The hardest part of all this has been sitting with my own thoughts. When I first told Maya to pack her stuff, I felt this rush of clarity, like I was finally standing up for myself. But now, weeks later, that certainty has eroded into a constant loop of what ifs. What if I overreacted? What if I could have just let it slide once? What if I could have given her one warning instead of kicking her out on the spot? Then I'd remember the look on her face when she lied to me, and the anger would flare back up. It was like whiplash, bouncing between guilt and righteousness. Maybe I should have taken a night to cool down, but then I think about the buildup. The way Jake made himself at home in my space. The way Maya brushed off my concerns like I was just being uptight. The way she looked me in the eye earlier that evening and said it'd be a quiet night, when she must have already known Jake wasn't leaving. That wasn't an accident. That was a choice. A choice to ignore my boundary in the one place I should feel safest. I think that's what cut so deep. It wasn't about the guest role in isolation. It was about trust, about respect, about realizing that someone I considered my closest friend thought so little of the one condition I set, she didn't even hesitate to break it. And yet, the guilt gnaws at me. I scroll through old photos of us, goofy selfies at concerts, road trips with fast food wrappers in the backseat, late night ice cream runs in college. I think about the nights she sat on the floor with me when I was crying over some guy, or the time she drove an hour out of her way just to bring me soup when I was sick. Was all of that worth throwing away over this? Or maybe that's the trap I keep falling into, confusing good memories with healthy boundaries. Just because we had great times in the past doesn't mean the present version of our friendship was healthy. Still, it feels like I lost something bigger than just a roommate. My friends are divided. Half of them say, "You did the right thing, she crossed the line." The other half say, "Come on, it was one night, you could have just warned her." I feel like I'm living in two realities at once. In one, I'm a person who finally grew a backbone. In the other, I'm a selfish, dramatic jerk who nuked a friendship out of pride. The thing is, I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to be remembered as the friend who kicked someone out when they had nowhere else to go. I keep picturing her dragging that suitcase out the door, her eyes red from crying, and hearing her mutter, "You're unbelievable." And maybe she's right. Maybe I am. So here I am, sitting in my quiet apartment. No Maya, no Jake, no piles of dishes or missing groceries. I have my space back, the thing I fought for, the thing I thought mattered most. And yet, instead of feeling victorious, I just feel hollow. I don't regret setting boundaries. I don't regret making it clear from the start that no overnight guests wasn't negotiable. What I regret is how fast it all escalated, how quickly I went from, "Hey, please respect my rule," to "Get out." I regret that my best friend, someone who's been part of my life for more than a decade, walked out of my door not with love, not with understanding, but with anger and disappointment. Part of me thinks this was inevitable, that our friendship had cracks for a long time and this was just the straw that broke it. Part of me also thinks maybe I could have handled it with more grace, more patience, more compassion. I keep cycling between two extremes. I was right to stand up for myself. I destroyed a friendship over something small, and I can't figure out which version is true. I haven't heard from Maya since she left. I don't know if she ever will reach out, and honestly, I don't even know what I'd say if she did. I miss her, but I also don't miss feeling walked over in my own home. So Reddit, I need you to be the impartial jury here. Did I cross the line? Was I too harsh? Should I have given her another chance? Or was it fair to finally enforce the one boundary I asked for? Am I the ATA for kicking my best friend out after she broke my no overnight guests rule?